Sanibonani igama lami Katlego Msomi. Welcome to the special edition of Soweto TV News. On this Human Rights Day, we are looking at the issue of abandoned mines in Soweto. It looks like Sowetans have been left to bear the brunt of old abandoned mines and mine dumps that harbor toxins that have contributed to a rise in respiratory issues. A study by the Benchmarks Foundation found very high incidences of cerebral palsy, which are caused by radioactive material in the waste from abandoned mine dumps. The study focused on the Diepkloof, Doornkop and Middelland's areas. Experts have predicted a rise in cancers related to the skin and lungs in the future as a result of mine dust that keeps sweeping through some parts of Soweto.
From all the hinterlands of southern and central Africa, this train carries young and old African men who are conscripted to come and work on contract in the gold and mineral mines of Johannesburg.
They call it the City of Gold. Deep in its fertile soil laid golden eggs, where its people would work the land, but fortunes were reaped by those who had come on a treasure hunt.
Historically, people have come to Johannesburg to work in the mines. Cecil Rhodes and them passed laws to force people off land in Zimbabwe, off land in Malawi, off land in Zambia and so on to come and work in South African mines. Now, generation after generation after generation have come. You know, the problem is that people are still coming, but the mines are no longer operational. You know, and so the only land that is available in Johannesburg to settle on is, in fact, the mine dumps.
Men and women flocked to what was then a village, setting up informal settlements in appalling conditions, feeding into what was a growing need for labor. The year 1886 was a defining year for Johannesburg. Foreign labor would thrive as the discovery of payable gold meant there was more digging to be done.
When they are digging and drilling for that shiny, mighty, evasive stone,
Mine owners opted for cheap labor, putting a strain on the job market, where many under oppressive laws struggled to make ends meet. The rapid economic population growth sparked a need for racial segregation, which saw blacks, colored and Indian communities settled in the shadows of mine dumps, waiting to inhale.
All along the northern edge of Soweto, you have a mining belt with a lot of mine waste dumps. A lot of these mine waste dumps are said to be abandoned, they are said to be derelict, or they are said to be ownerless. But there are actually mining licenses for all those dumps, and those dumps are being remined by companies now as well. However, the dumps themselves are not secure, the dumps themselves are not fenced, the dumps themselves are not signposted. And so anyone can walk in and anyone can walk out. But apart from that, we also have a situation where housing has now entered the 500-meter exclusion zone of most of those dumps. So that you find houses right below the dumps and there's no safety zone around them. And so the problem with that is that when you have the wind season in winter, dust constantly blows into Soweto. Soweto is in a basin. So the sections of Soweto most affected would be Diepkloof, it would be Middelland's, it would be Doornkop and Snake Park.
The new dawn of democracy meant a renewed set of hope and a promising tomorrow for previously oppressed communities. The 1955 Freedom Charter and Constitution of South Africa were the cornerstones of this, overseeing the transformation of the lives of ordinary South Africans and the land in which they lived in. Soweto was one of the most recognized townships in the country, breeding iconic stars and 2 Nobel Peace Prize winners. But little did we know that its future hung by a thread.
Not surprisingly, we found that the ailments that most affect them are in fact respiratory problems, and then eye problems and skin problems. And these are all problems that can be associated with high dust levels. But you also have problems with the runoff of water because Soweto is a basin, and so what you are having in that basin is the water that runs off the tailings becomes acidic, because when you have things like copper, iron, other chemicals in the tailings reacting with water and oxygen, it forms acid. And the acid then washes out the heavy metals from that. Pyrites is the other chemical that reacts with oxygen and water. And so when it runs off into the streams. It also runs off into acid ponds.
Just like the establishment of Johannesburg, the Dorongop area, also known as Snake Park, was first established as a form of informal settlement. A quick Google search estimates the area value at 125 hectares, situated to the north of Harmony Mine's old and unmaintained tailings. Thousands have been allocated RDP houses, while some 2,500 people still live in zinc shacks. Research conducted by the Benchmarks Foundation shows that household health complaints of fever, asthma and dominant coughs accounted for 50.7%. All of these attributed to the high levels of arsenic and other radioactive materials found in the wind. Daisy Makam, who's about to turn 57, is one of the residents that moved in the area to form a shanty town. She says despite being moved into an RDP house, their homes are still fed from the runoff of the nearby mine dump.
Idasti bingekho tewe khona ngoku ingakhona ngoba bekuna lamabhunu ebekhona la ebefake amapipe ukuthi idust ingasibulali. So abantu abacabanga ukuthi babahlakaniphile batshontsha lamapipe la benza ukuthi utshani lo usentabeni ube manzi. So since from then, since batshontsha amapipe siyasokola ngedust. Uyabona mayiqalile idust le baba. Noba uthi uvalile eminyango kuyafana. Noba uthi uvala amafestiri kuyafana. Ngoba ingena abantu bacabanga ukuthi awuklinanga kanti uklinile. Uyabona? Ngoba iyangena noba uvalile. Ngiblock amakhala, ne? Amehlo wami aba red. Futhi mayiqalile ungathi mina ngibheme insango kanti angibhemanga insango yile dust le. Letaba le US bulalayo. Ngoba yonke idust le iza la kuthi.
Makam's house is directly faced with the tailings. She's had to form a plan as there was nothing she could do to save herself from the dust.
The dust. My caddies. Ivala so. I'm a festival.
Despite all these efforts, dust still finds itself in. Evidently, Makam cooks food that is highly contaminated with radioactive material. And unlike bacteria, chemicals don't die from heat, but only react.
This is chemical that we're talking about. Chemical does not die at any temperature. It reacts to heat. It doesn't die. It doesn't dissolve. You know, so it's always there. Whether you cook it, there's nothing you can do. Like she said, the only thing is washing the food. But as for directly if wind is blown into the pot, the only precautions they can take, they can wash the food before they cook it and they wash it thoroughly. Secondly, they can also make sure that their food is covered all the time.
While access to adequate health facilities is still a big problem in South Africa, according to environmental health experts, constrained budgets and overstretched resources can only do so much.
Government resources are not enough, unlike compared to the private sector, because now private sector have all the resources, they have all the things. So normally when you go to a private sector, the most belief is that when you go to a private sector, they would test for all of the possible diseases that you might have, and chances of you diagnosing your problem earlier are higher than in a government institution.
When you look at access to health facilities, as you move from the south of Johannesburg across Soweto towards the north of Johannesburg, so access to health facilities improve. Okay, you have basically in Soweto one big hospital, and that's Baragwanath, and then a whole range of clinics. If you come north, within very short range of me, there's Johannesburg General on my east. There is hospitals all along the reef towards my west as well, Helen Joseph and others. Okay, and look, we have found patients in Soweto that needed urgent help. That we actually even formed the National Health Minister and the National Health Department about the situation of these patients, and we were referred to Helen Joseph only for these patients to be chased away from there. And eventually, we had to organize private healthcare for these people who could not afford to actually have it. So there is. Racial apartheid has kind of disappeared and been replaced by a form of economic apartheid. If you can afford health, you can have really good health. If you cannot afford health, you are at the mercy of clinics, and within the clinics, they are mostly staffed by nurses, and nurses who cannot cope with these kinds of illnesses that we are referring to that relate to toxic mine waste.
About 10 meters away from the 56-year-old's home are small farmers of livestock. With the need to sustain their livelihoods, these farmers identified land which they could use to farm. Eric Pongolo and Sibusiso Mtagati are one of the farmers in the area who had received their retirement packages and opted to farm. They say talks of land redistributions were not happening at the time of establishing their business and were ultimately left with the option of joining those who had already started.
Singene ngesikhathi somzabalazo sangena yaze indawo ke yavumeleka ngokusemthethweni kwaqala ke manje usaxoxisana ugovernment wangena kodwa ekuqaleni kwethu asingenanga kahle sangena ngendluzula.
The operations in this farm start as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. Pongolo and Mtagati spend most of their time on site, and this means they have become accustomed to inhaling mine dust on a daily basis.
Sinenkinga yamehlo, sikhala ngamehlo noma sesilele siba nezifuba noma njengoba sesifuyile nje impahla yethu iyagula ikhona ukuphila kahle. Yiloko nje esithola ubunzima.
But this is not an effect exclusive to humans. The animal's health is also compromised. Giving birth on a windy day minimizes the infant's chance of survival.
Izalwe ngelanga elibi le dust. Sithe sithi siyayisindisa kodwa ukuthi seyithathelele ukungcola ke. Asikhona ukuyisindisa kuba kanjalo nje siyasokola sifuyile kona kodwa ke kunzima.
And for those who do, health complications are triggered.
Njengoba kuhlelwe nje kanje befuyile abafowethu la nempahla ababayifuyile iphefumula wona lo moyo nale dust le. Manje mawungabheka ke lapha isikhathi esiningi ke ama affections akhona ama-worse ngoba intaba leni nama-chemical angithi kwakuyimayini le. Uyakwazi ukuthi usheshe uzibone ugijimeke uye ko-Copperas uhambe uyothenga ke lawo ma-chemicals ukuthi mhlambe zincedakala.
The future of these farmers seems bleak, as relocating to a different area may come at a high cost. All they are holding on to now is the agreement made between them and the government. Until then, they, together with their livestock, are subjected to the lethal dust. Living in squalor has not been a foreign concept for many South Africans. But here in Matole, the heart of Durban Deep's informal settlements, are residents who've had to bear double the brunt of ailments caused by old mine dumps. This shanty town lies just 12 kilometers away from Snake Park. Its residents, just like thousands of other South Africans, fall under the 600,000 Gauteng housing backlog. The area was established just a few meters away from Durban Deep's gold mine tailing.
Crisis. No. And yes ago. I know. Kidile. Difficile. Jwale re dula re lla ka ntho tse ho bona. Ha ma ga ba re se nix. Re gile ka tloa mona re entse toitoi re ya kwa Joburg kwa. Go bua yana taba. Ba khutisa ba rene ba tla re jwetsa. Ga ba le ko town hall ko Rodiport. Ga te. Ba re tshepisa hape gore re tlata ka mo lona re tlata ka mo lona le no ha ba se ka batla.
E affecta bana ba rona haholo ka hore ke bana ba rona ba bapallang mo Nthabeng. Bana ba tswa diso re tshwanetse re ba ise ditleliniking nako ngwe kry-ile gore bana ba topa dintho ka mo ntle ba dija bana ba tsholla wa bona ene bana ba rata ba palla mola thabeng ela ba palama ene ona tšo ya bona jalo ka pula dina ya kreka neng bana ba ka wela mola bana ba lemala re phela bohloko di-toilet di ka ko ntle wa bona gore mekhukhu ya gona e kopakopane jwang di-toilet di ko ntle bosiu o sitwa gore o tswele ko ntle gore o ka toilet le ha di le teng ba nka nako gore ba tle ba di hule ke mathata fela mona a mangata wa bona ene menkgo ela le yona o tsebe gore ga o kgone go jala hantle wa bona re ga metsi ole re tshela metsi mo tseleng a ditshila ke mathata.
The proximity of the established housing and informal settlements is, according to the Benchmarks Foundation, one of the biggest contributing factors.
If you look, for instance, around Shaft 17, what they've done, they've planted grass around the mine dumps as a way of trying to prevent mine dust affecting the residents in Deep Kloof and so on. So it's one of the ways that you would have expected that mining houses would have done to try, while they're going to process these mine dumps and for further extracts of gold, they should have done that to prevent ailments that are associated with mine dump soil that gets eroded or get blown by the air. The issue is the enforcement, and that's at the heart of the challenge now. The enforcement in terms of the removal of the mine dumps, the rehabilitation of that land. We want that land to be rehabilitated so that it can be used for human habitat. People can stay in those areas. If the mine dumps are removed, there's lots of land that can be utilized in those areas.
But with the lack of land in the area, it seems a due process may have to be followed to establish viable land for housing projects, particularly in mining areas where land is said to be dolomitic.
When we start a project, we subject it to EIA, Environmental Impact Studies assessment, just to ascertain the soil type, what lies under the ground, how compact it is, and so on. There is no water under the ground that would resurface at some point and affect the foundation and so on.
Well, the Benchmarks Foundation cited a remiss of consultation by officials with community members. Some say they were warned, but despite this, their conditions would not allow them to leave.
Usixwayisile ngayo wathi le ndawo ayiphephile le nokufuyanga noma sifuya nje ikhona indawo asasizama usibhekisele yona uthi asihlalanga permanent la singasuka noma yinini.
Thina besingatshelwanga indaba ukuthi ugovernment ebekupha i-stand number sakho ukuthi wena uzohlala la.
Spokesperson of the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements, Keith Khoza, says if there's anyone to account, it would have to be the Department of Mineral Resources.
It is a concern of all of us. We are concerned as well as you are concerned. It's a problem. It can't be sustained. It has to be dealt with. There has to be mitigation. If they can't do it in the immediate period, they must do things like greening the area to prevent soil erosion and the dust coming through.
While the departments are pointing fingers at each other, it seems the most vulnerable are the hardest hit.
What we have found is that children swim in these acid ponds, and they shouldn't be because the water is firstly very acidic, and secondly the water contains lots of very toxic heavy metals. And because it contains lots of toxic heavy metals, the problem is that these children are actually exposing themselves to possible cancer, they're exposing themselves to possible skin disease and other illnesses.
This is what experts have described as a goose that laid golden eggs, but has now come at a high cost for communities living in nearby areas. The rise of acid mine water to the surface has been noted with great concern, particularly in places that are used as playgrounds. This is Njabulo Mabote and Kamukhelo Mukhadi. They form part of the children who come to this area on a daily basis for recreational purposes. For them, this is a time to collect clay and create works of art.
Re tsa dikgomo ma sena re tsa ntho engwe le engwe re ratang rona ne re kgammo fela ma re ra etsa letsatsi la teng ra e beya ka isiakwa next day ra thola e setse yo mile e be re qala setse re khafela re bolela le batho gore go akriwa ke clay go kgatla le bana mo ba tlo swim.
After every collection, the boys would routinely wash their hands in the tailings evaporation pond. They say they are not aware of the effects that could culminate as a result of being in contact with the water. Environmental health practitioners say contact with any of these mine dump chemicals could trigger ailments such as cancer.
These mines are closer to people, and remember, most of these people actually don't even afford to get proper healthcare services. So they have no, or umzimba wabo is not strong enough to defend themselves. So they are at risk. There is a huge risk, because as long as these mines are existing and are not controlled and treated, they always pose a risk.
In 2005, the Department of Mineral Resources initiated the Radioactive Waste Management Fund, where generators of radioactive waste material would contribute to the fund in efforts of managing and rehabilitating of mine dumps. While it's unclear whether this policy saw the light of day, Mabote and Mokhadi say they accessed these tailings because they were told they were closed down. Experts say abandoned and unsecured mine dumps are a sign of loopholes in the legislation and blatant refusal to take responsibility by mine owners.
One mine owner, when we published the study, said that we are insane. Do we expect them to fence these mine dumps and signpost these mine dumps? He said it would be like signposting and fencing a river. That's crazy, because there's a lot of places in South Africa where mine dumps are properly fenced. You know, why can't they be properly fenced in Soweto? You know, it might even be an employment creation project for people in Soweto if they were involved in the fencing and the maintenance of the fencing of the mine dumps around that particular area. There is no signposting, there is no attempt at an education program for the people who are living in Soweto. So for us, the lack of concern by the mining industry is a problem.
These legislations are not made to decorate our offices and decorate our... They should be there to be implemented, and everyone should adhere to it. If Mundu failure to follow a legislation, should be prosecuted.
According to this expert, these aren't just heaps of sand that should be overlooked, but are merely a symbol of the apartheid legacy that transitioned from racial to economic oppression for the benefits of the minority. Mnisi, Soweto TV News in Soweto.
Thanks to Mnisi for that report. We do hope you gained a lot of knowledge from that. Remember, we love hearing from you, so to share any news or stories with us, you can give us a call or simply send us an email on news@sowetotv.co.za. You're also welcome to interact with us on our social media pages. On Facebook, we are Soweto TV channel, and our Twitter handle is @Soweto TV channel. That's it from us. Until tomorrow, goodbye.